Right. There we go. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. My name is Amanda, and I want to welcome you to today's TechStrong Learning Experience. Welcome. We are super excited to have you join us today. It's going to be a great topic with great speakers. Just a few reminders before we get started. This session is being recorded and will be available afterward on demand. We will send you a link to your inbox once we conclude today's live session with a link to review that on-demand recording. So keep an eye on your inbox for that. We want to also engage with you in today's session. It's going to be a great topic, great conversation with great speakers. So feel free to utilize the chat and join us in the chat by telling us where you're joining from. Any comments or questions that you have about today's subject matter, feel free to utilize that public chat for that. If you have specific questions that you'd like to ask of our speakers today, we ask that you use the Q&A panel, and we will save time for questions throughout and towards the end as well. So feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A panel on the right side, and we'll make sure that your question gets answered during today's live program if we have time. We also have some great resources available. You can find these on the left side of your screen, so feel free to download those. Those are from the AWS Datavail, and we are grateful for them sponsoring today's webinar. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and kick off today's topic and dive into everything. Today's topic is Don't Get Distracted, Data Management and Quality Are as Fundamental as Ever. Great topic with great speakers. And today I'm going to be joined by Guy Currier, an analyst at Futurum Group that works with the TechStrong group here. So Guy, I'm going to kick it over to you to get us started with some more introductions and the topic.
Thanks so much, and hello, everyone. Yeah, data management and quality and data security. They've always been important, but are they getting more important? They might be. So, Guy Currier, analyst at the Futurum Group, here today hosting, and I am pleased to be covering this topic. I would say that data management and quality have perhaps become primary in importance now, but that so far this is only being said. You hear it a lot. I'm not sure it's been put into practice enough, this idea of data management and quality being fundamental. So TechStrong Research ran a poll to find out if this is right or not, if I'm onto something. The poll and the report were sponsored by Datavail. So joining me today is Tom Hoblitzell. He's the Senior Vice President of Data Management at Datavail. Welcome, Tom. Tell us a little about yourself and about Datavail.
Well, a little bit about myself. I've been at Datavail for approximately 8 years now. I head up the data management, which is everything around analytics, business intelligence, data integration, data migration, data governance, et cetera. Industry, I've been in the industry for over 30 years, really dealing with data management. Started out with the idea of business intelligence and analytics, and went from there to really where we are today. And I agree. I think data is very important in the industry today. We at Datavail are based on data. We started out as a database management company, and from there have expanded into the data management realm, as well as now into the ERP around Oracle, as well as custom app development.
That's great. In the study, which we'll get into in a minute, we delved into data management, data quality, data security, how those are being perceived right now, how they're being addressed. One of the things that has been true about data and about IT since the beginning are these successive waves of technological change, technological opportunity. The PC, client server, the internet. I think you know where I'm going with this. The latest is, of course, AI. I would say, and I think that the poll helps bear this out, that AI is different in many respects, and one of those respects is the way it has made data management, quality, and security don't want to say exponentially more important, but certainly dramatically more important. And I think the industry maybe is still catching up to that. In our poll, the state of data maturity was kind of seen as lacking in a lot of ways, but recognized as an issue by the leadership of the organizations that we polled. So let's start with that, and we'll get to AI soon enough. Everyone needs a little break from it for a while, so we'll give them a 5-10 minute break. How about that, Tom? But one of the key findings from the poll is the recognition by organizations that data quality and security are kind of like the foundation to achieving any of the goals that they're approaching. I referred to the leadership earlier. The leadership of these organizations has reported that nearly 50% of them, actually over 50% of them, consider data quality to be of the highest importance at their organization. Have you experienced this being at Datavail and working with customers? Do you have any examples of this?
We've experienced that probably with almost 70% of the people that we talk to. And the reason around that is there's a lot of businesses that are out there that are really striving to use the data to report on how they're operating. And it may not be just at the corporate level, but it could be at the department or the divisional level. And the problem is we have a few clients, we have one in particular that's in the energy field, and one of their major issues that they came to us is nobody trusts the data. Nobody looks at it and says, is this data accurate? Because it doesn't go through any audit balance and controls when they feed the data into the reporting engine. They're not sure whether they're getting consistent data. And then when we look about consistent data, we're also looking at the old concept of a single version of the truth. From here, you've got everybody sitting in a meeting and saying, look, my profitability or my sales are XYZ, but everybody else looks at it and says, well, no, I got your number as ABC. It's all different because there is no commonality. Now what we're seeing in the industry and what we're proposing with a lot of clients is to really provide that capability, getting a standard glossary, getting that glossary to basically be able to calculate not only what are the calculations, but what data elements are you using? Where's the data coming from? What's the lineage of that data? And that's becoming more important with regulated industries as well. When you look at financial services, the auditors are looking at it as, how did you achieve the number that you're going to give me in terms of profitability or sales? They want to understand, how was that number obtained? What were the data elements that were used to calculate? What was the calculation? The same in the healthcare, the same in the consumer products. Any industry that it's a regulated environment is really, the auditors are looking at the lineage of the data. They want to track that back to the glossary. They want to prove that it's accurate. They want to be able to see what error checking you're having when you're bringing that data through your systems and into your reporting process. They want to be able to view that and be able to see it.
But I kind of wonder if there's a whole lot more chatter about this and acknowledgement of it than practical progress in a lot of these organizations. The study itself, as we said, there were only about 25% fewer of the respondents who felt that their data management and quality had a real level of maturity. That's 75% of organizations. I actually can't even doubt the 25%. I think a lot of those aren't as mature as they think they are. So is there a tension right now? You said nobody recognizes. That was sort of how you started. Is there a tension or an issue here that organizations really need to self-examine and understand what's going on?
There is, and part of that tension comes from the fact that everybody is using Excel for reporting. I can very easily look at Excel, or I can look at Tableau or Power BI, and I can bring data out of my source systems or data out of a worksheet, throw it into one of those tools, and generate reports. Well, how accurate is that data? Customers are now looking at it and saying, we need more accuracy. They want to be able to merge structured and unstructured data, as well as operational data and financial data. We have customers that are looking at it and saying, if I make a change in my operation, what's going to be the impact? Even if you look at it around marketing, if I do a promotion and I can forecast that that promotion is going to generate XYZ in terms of revenue and profitability, is that good for me or not? Am I going to actually be able to obtain those results and I'm going to put those in potentially even as a service level agreement when I run that campaign. So I can actually measure whether or not I'm receiving that result or not. So, there is a movement to really getting more and more data management quality and even governance into the equation right now.
And this has to be an independent initiative. I mean, the more independently funded, and so forth, probably in many cases, the more reliable and the better it is, because aren't you asking a lot of folks who don't think about this, don't necessarily have the competence to still implement it?
Well, you're correct, but the other aspect of it is it's not just an IT issue. IT is not a partner with the business. Most of the firms that we talk to and the way that we look at it is, IT is providing the data foundation. They're providing that, but it's really the business that is responsible for the quality of that data. They've got to look at how that's being processed, what the results are, how am I actually leveraging that data, particularly in today's day and age when customers are looking to become more data driven. They're looking to use data more as a strategic asset to help grow the business. If we look at a maturity curve of analytics, down at the bottom, you're running the business because you're now reporting. But really what they're trying to get up to is to get to the prescriptive predictive analytics to really transform the business, provide that capability. And in doing so, you've got to have a trust in the data. So companies are now really starting to focus more around data management, more around data governance. I was with a client yesterday in the consumer products area, and we were talking about, they've done a lot of merger integration. And what they've done there is really gone from one data warehouse to 4 or 5 data warehouses. How do I bring that data together into a single environment? And now with the advent of some of the newer technologies around data meshes and data fabrics, they want to be able to bring that data, not necessarily pull it into one environment, but be able to report on that through a data mesh, but have accuracy in the data.
One of the sort of strategic level bits of advice we tend to give adopters and implementers is to start to treat data as a constantly, it's almost like a living, evolving resource of its own. It's dynamic, it's opportunistic, it's got a certain life of its own in some ways. You can add new inputs, new ways to organize it. And if you start to treat it as such, as opposed to, I think what a lot of people think of it as, it's something structured, even if it's object storage or whatever, something really structured.
Yep.
If you think of it less as something that is, one of the common terms is lifeblood of your business, but think of it as or organic in a certain way. How do you ensure that creativity and that innovation and creative source impetus that you get from data can still be managed and still secure and still be done in a quality and auditable way and so forth?
Well, it's a matter of stepping back. And, one of the things that we specialize in doing with our clients is looking at the data foundation. You've got to start with a solid foundation moving forward. Where is the data coming from? What sources are you pulling the data? What are you doing to bring that? If I look at it from a data framework, I want to look at it from what's the data integration, the data ingestion, how am I storing the data, what's the quality of that data, what's the governance around that I'm looking at, and how I'm reporting on that data. Because you've got to bring all those components together to ensure that the data is going to have high quality, that you can believe the results, and you can trust the data, because you're making business decisions nowadays based on what the data is telling you and the opportunities that the data provides to you as a business. But you've got to have that trust. You've got to make sure that when you're ingesting the data into I don't care whether it's a data lake, a fabric, whether it's a data warehouse, et cetera, you've got to make sure that you have that audit balance and controls to make sure that you're bringing quality data in. We had an issue with a client, which was a CPG firm that we worked with, where we were looking at sales data. And as we went through the sales data, the distributors had the ability of taking 2 products and combining them to be a third product. So one distributor did that, and as the data came in, We started seeing sales for a product that nobody knew what that product was. We had to go back out to the business as part of the governance process for them to be able to look at, what am I actually doing? Where is this coming from? For them to be able to reach out, understand what the new product was, and then make the decision is, do I look at sales based on the new product, or do I look at it based on the two items that were brought together to create that product?
I think
And
that's
really where
classic
you're looking at the
example.
governance
Yeah.
side of it. I'm sorry.
I think that's a classic example of the kind of evolution,
Yes.
dynamism that you want in the data set, is that you can recognize these things, and that becomes a business opportunity. That could be a business strategy born out of that sort of approach.
But you've got to have that approach embedded into how you're actually doing with the data, how you're working with it, how you're managing the data.
The survey highlighted that there are several data management and quality initiatives, an average of a little over 2 at any one time going on in these organizations. And then when I refer to these initiatives, are things like cloud data migration, governance, data integration, high level stuff. We're not talking tactical, like different strategies and initiatives that they're taking to data management and quality. And they're pretty much all over the place. Not all over the place, sorry, that sounds like they're messy. It's not messy. There are a variety of approaches being taken, no one of which seems to be of any particular importance. So just to summarize, on average, organizations are taking 2 different approaches at the same time out of a list of 6 or 7 that we provided them. My question about this is, should there be particular approaches that customers should focus on, or should organizations be going kind of in sequence and doing multiples of these and sort of building up a really comprehensive data quality and management strategy?
Well, I think it comes down to the organization and what the goals and objectives are. We have a lot of clients that are looking at it and saying, how do I get my data? How do I ensure quality of that data? So first off, we're looking at the audit balance and controls. But then again, they're also looking at it and saying, as you said earlier, the migration of data into the cloud per se. How do I leverage that? How do I make sure that as I'm bringing this data together across the environment, across the various systems, that I have that quality?
So Tom, let's touch on that as an example. So 30% of respondents said that that cloud data migration was one of the data management quality initiatives they were following. 30% said that. Those 30% also, on average, had some other strategy of some kind. Now, 30% was the most common out of the 6 or so that we listed. The least common was a data implementation management. In other words, getting the data out more towards the on a service basis to the various applications. That was only 26%. That was 26%. So 30%, 26%. That's what I mean by the variety of approaches being taken. So this poll is substantiating what you're saying. Every organization is different. Every organization is going to have their own 2 or 3 or 1 that they're focusing on. Based on what? Based on their business strategy? Based on the state of their data? What do you think it is?
I think it's a combination of their strategy and the state of the data. When we go out there and we look at it, you look at the data maturity. Where is that data? How does that data being represented? Is that data, from a high quality perspective? Do they have any of the governance things around the data to protect it and to ensure that the users are getting that high quality data? Whether you migrate it to the cloud, whether you put it into a fabric, whether you look at the generation of new technologies that are coming out, and how that data is being reported on it, whether it's the reporting tools, whether you're going into AI, sorry to bring that up, you've got to look at it and say, how am I protecting the quality? The reality is garbage in, garbage out. And people are now using data as a strategic asset. Many of our companies that we deal with are looking to say, look, how can we leverage the data? But that data has to be accurate. We have to trust that data. There's every organization that we deal with from a business perspective, and you've got to deal with the business. It's really a business focus more than it is an IT focus. But the business is driving to be able to get access to the data. The business wants to run the models. In the insurance industry, we have clients that, when you go back, people talk about AI and machine learning. Well, in the insurance industry, that's been there for years because they're looking at what's their catastrophe, what's their reinsurance. When they're giving you a quote for a policy, they're looking at where do you live, what's your credit history, what's the issue around catastrophe. If you're down in Florida and you're in an area where there's been a lot of hailstorms, and you're looking at homeowners policy, they're going to look at it and charge you a premium because there's a high propensity for hail to damage the roof in that area of the country. So they're taking that data to make those business decisions to protect themselves and increase their capability.
The insurance business, certainly data quality and data analysis have been the lifeblood of those businesses. Retail maybe came on a little bit more recently, but clearly, has that same kind of culture. Retail, generally,
it's different. It's different business areas. When you look at insurance, it's really around risk management. Because the reality is, what an insurance company does in the property and casualty side will go out, and they will, they'll insure, and then they'll go to the reinsurance market to protect their liability. In the retail side of the equation, it's all around really how do I upsell and cross-sell and develop new channels to market to my customers? How do I put those promotions out there and see how successful those promotions are? And we've got a lot of retail companies that are doing that, because the reality is, particularly one client that we're dealing with today in the flavor and fragrance side of it, they introduce a new product. They want to check to see exactly what's the success of that product, because if it's not selling, they're going to take it off the shelves. Let's go out and introduce a new product. It's the same with the pharmaceutical industry. You go through the whole drug side of the equation, and they're looking at it and saying, what's the sales process here? How much do we need? Have we sold it? Do we still have the ownership of that drug before it becomes generic? And how do we expand on that and leverage that during the life cycle of the product in moving that forward?
Here's what's amazing to me, though, Tom, and I'd love your perspective on this. Is there's this kind of a phenomenon that data, once it hits the Excel or Tableau report, suddenly it takes on this golden sheen, and the users consuming the data just trust it, just believe it. I don't think that's true in certain industries, insurance being one of them, where there's a certain, I wouldn't say skepticism, but there's a recognition that the data sources of data quality and data management are super important. And what you're seeing, in a given report, you must have complete confidence in the data sourcing. But I think in general, that's not always the case. Now, you mentioned AI. I do want you to comment that, but you mentioned AI. In the case of AI, the phenomenon of hallucinations. Now it's not a report; it's a response from a chatbot, or it's a recommendation in a recommendation engine, and the user can sometimes see and sometimes not see when it's off, but the business definitely sees it relatively quickly. That's AI. I'm saying and we'll get back to AI in this sort of reporting format. Like I said, it's like there's this magical sparkliness to something that's been tabulated in a fancy looking Excel or Tableau report. But if the data going in was garbage, then that's a garbage report, and people may not even know.
No, that goes down to the issue of how do you trust the data source? Are you pulling it directly from the source, or are you pulling it from another sheet? The problem
an important data quality initiative, right?
Yeah, you've got to be able to trust the source, and there has to be trustworthy sources that are out there. The source has to have some element of high quality. You've got to be able to pull it. Companies that have problems and don't trust the data are those that are going out, pulling the data, modifying the data, manipulating the data in spreadsheets, and then using those spreadsheets to feed into a Tableau or a Power BI report, and then they're using it to report it. Are the manipulations that they've done through those reports, are they accurate? Is there commonality? Are they the standard calculations that the company has bought off on and have documented? And this is where the governance play is starting to really come in. Companies are really starting to focus on, I've got to make sure the quality of the data is there and I've got to govern that. And it's not just building the data glossary, but it's understanding the calculations that are out there. It's understanding, what do I do when that data does not become trusted again, or when I get that one piece of data that I do not expect, particularly around master data. What do I do about that? And that's where the business comes into play around, the whole data governance framework and the process that needs to be implemented. And we've done that for numerous companies. Everything from the American Red Cross, when they looked at it from a data governance perspective, they've got to trust their data around, the blood side of the equation. They were having issues. We came in, we actually put a whole governance program, from a business perspective, and then brought the technology in as an enabler. Some of the people start governance with, hey, I'm going to implement this technology. But if you don't have the business process right on top of that, and the organizational structure and the change management on top of it, you can bring the technology, it's not going to enable your governance. It's going to give you garbage again as you go forward. You've got to have a holistic picture of what you're trying to do and how to do it.
So actually, I was thinking, I was sort of, pointing out as what I see as a fascinating phenomenon, this idea that once it's hit the spreadsheet, once it's hit Tableau, it's given an importance and a quality to it that it may not merit. But what I think you've highlighted for us is that the processes involved, really it's process. The processes involved are as important. Governance as well.
Yeah.
But for users and consumers of it, if they are following the right process, then kind of that's not going to happen. They're not going to mistake, the data source for a report. They're going to know and have verified its quality. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. These are all important elements that go into the data management, quality, and security, effort. So let's get back to AI.
Sure.
Because, like I said, there's been enough exposure, like using generative AI for math was like one of the early examples. There's been enough exposure to the potential inaccuracies of AI, and a great deal of effort and attention put on AI quality of recommendation, quality of output generated, that sort of thing. In fact, in the study, 2/3 of the respondents said that AI will have at least a significant impact on their data management and quality strategy in the next 3 years. And over 1/3 of them said it will have a profound impact. So why don't you, give us a little overview of that and some examples of that sort of thing you've been working on? Because I think a little depth on that would be really helpful to our viewers.
Well, everybody is trying to do something right now with AI, whether it's generative AI or whether it's through machine learning. They're trying to get the insights out of the data. They're looking at it and saying, let me build a chatbot that can go out and provide information quickly. Now, what it comes down to is, where's that information coming from? Is that information coming internally or externally to the business? If it's coming out from the World Wide Web, as we all know, Wikipedia and everything else out there, do you really trust that data? If it's coming from internal, then you can trust it. We have certain companies right now from a generative AI perspective that are in the manufacturing realm. And what they're doing is they're taking all of their processes, bill of materials, building process, et cetera, and they're putting that in, taking those binders that the individual would look at, and they're putting those online as PDFs and having Gen AI go out there. So if I want to be able to look up a part, or here's the issue I'm having, what's the way to fix that issue? You look at some of the auto manufacturers that are out there right now. A mechanic would go to a book and be able to search, what do I need to do to fix a problem? I can put that in through AI right now, and I can actually go out there, look up the problem, and actually get the result and the diagnostic and what do I need to do to fix it very quickly. but I'm coming from a trusted source. So really they can trust that from an AI perspective. AI is really hits the old premise, as I said earlier, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't trust the source of where that data is coming from, it may not be accurate.
One of the things I say about AI, I've been commenting on this for quite some time, is generative AI in particular. Okay, that's the most recent and the most recent type of AI. There are others like recommendation engines and analytics and so forth. Generative AI in particular, though, it's trained to simulate, responses or writing or creation of images, to simulate them.
Yeah.
And that's a really important distinction from generating answers to questions. It's a simulated answer to a question. And so that sort of a scenario amplifies the importance of the data used to train or to tune, or for, RAG, retrieval augmented generation, where, at the moment of prompt, new data is added to help with that generation. When you keep in mind that the AI is providing a simulation, you really want that simulation to have a very high level of accuracy. And maybe that's why over a third of our respondents said in a separate question that data quality and accuracy is one of the top concerns they have regarding the adoption and use of AI.
Well, let's look at AI in general. AI really, in some ways, is the automation of what the knowledge worker does, and how they actually do their work. When you look at things such as robotic process automation, that effectively is AI, because what you're doing is you're training the data based on certain criteria to either approve the invoice, in an accounts payable scenario, or accounts receivable, or generate a check. If the data is not accurate and the training of that AI tool is not accurate, you could be approving invoices, or you could be sending out checks for receivables that could damage your business. So that's just one example, where companies that we faced are looking at it and saying, how do I make sure that the information also within my source systems is accurate? Because that's what I'm looking at it. And how do I train that bot or that component, that AI component, to really leverage the data that can be trusted to do the right step in the right approval? Nowadays in the insurance industry, you have a lot of companies that are coming out where online you can enter your information and they will have a AI engine that will actually go out, check all the information that you've entered, and basically come back to you with a premium that you can then bind the policy before it even goes into underwriting. They're looking heavily at what information are we looking at, what are the sources of information, and how accurate are those sources.
Yeah, and the knowledge worker automation side of it. Once you say automation, you're now talking about an expanded footprint, an expanded blast radius for issues. All of these seem to come together and show how AI in particular, amongst other ways it's sort of transforming our business, does put data quality and management really in the spotlight, should be in the spotlight. So as the title of this webinar says, we shouldn't get distracted by fancy, shiny things like AI from the increasing, maybe primary importance of data. I want to ask you a little bit about security and privacy. We've mostly been talking about data quality. The same question where over a third, one of the top two answers of our organizations we polled said the data and quality and accuracy is a top significant concern with respect to AI. The same number, over a third, said security and privacy is also a top concern. So I wonder if you could comment on that a little bit in the AI context, but also maybe in general, and how that maybe relates to all the quality issues and management issues we were talking about.
Well, it relates to a number of different areas. As people move data to the cloud, people are concerned about security, particularly around PII data, which is personal information, or around HIPAA and around other, privacy issues that are out there. One of the problems that we've had is we've had all these data breaches that have been publicized. People going in and getting the data breach out there. So we've had personal information that's been exposed by whether it's a financial institution or others. People want to make sure that that data is secure, that data is going to stay within the business and cannot be moved out. And we even have the issue where companies are, how do I take that data and move it into another environment for testing? You look at GDPR, which is the global side of the equation, and looking at it and say, how do I protect my data? And you look at concepts out there around data obfuscation, data masking, the encryption of that data. People are very worried, especially with the cloud, around that data being accessed or exposed over the internet. We want to make sure that that data is secure. That lifeblood of the company, particularly if you're a regulated industry, you've got to make sure that that information is secure, is being maintained, and not be breached at all. That's part of the lifeblood of the company.
You mentioned HIPAA. HIPAA is a version of the PCI standard that people may have heard of. These are all ways in which, either by law or by standards, industries and organizations are ensuring that privacy and security. I mean, we hear about breaches often enough. Is there also an implication as to accuracy or provenance or any of those other sort of things that really feed into quality AI and safe and ethical use of AI?
I would say yes, there is. You've got to be able to look at it and say, what are you actually doing? What are the use cases? Every company that we talk to is looking at AI from one way or another. They're looking at it and say, how do I leverage it? What is the value AI can provide for me? How do I leverage my data? If I have specific data, such as we have one company that we've dealt with, which is they provide circular data, around supermarkets. They maintain that data. They want to be able to make sure that, as my differentiation, and I look at it from a concept called the meal maker, push that data out there, that if somebody's looking for what's the cost of certain ingredients, that I can make sure it's going out to the right data source and that it's accurate, because people are purchasing information off of that. But it really comes down to stepping back, the whole concept of data quality, the whole concept of AI, it comes back to having that solid data foundation. That's what's required. Companies have to look at themselves and say, is your data ready for AI? Do you have the right framework, the right governance, the right quality moving forward? And if you do, then move forward. But identify what those use cases are as well, and make sure that those use cases are not going to create trouble.
This also is having an impact across the whole data structure, it seems, at organizations, at least according to our poll. Mm-hmm. AI is just, it's the wave. It's always worth addressing. You were perfectly right to bring it up. You apologize. No need to apologize. Everybody's dealing with this. But we don't want to forget that there are and have been broad modernization issues going on: digital transformation, infrastructure modernization, data modernization, turning data into that living, breathing, evolving part of the business. And we did ask our survey respondents about this, and it was a very interesting response. Organizations are balancing between fundamental data management needs that have to do with that modernization, and it's been going on for a really long time, but also being prepared for innovation and to use not just AI, but the new waves of opportunity. So a roughly even number of respondents said that your basic elements of cost reduction, or increased agility, in the era of cloud, are top goals for modernization. But data quality was right up there, data security was right up there, as well as advancing enabling advanced analytics or AI ML. So there really is this balancing act going on to modernize everything for your basic IT needs, with also prepping data for innovation and for future growth. Are you seeing that as well?
We see that all the time. Every company that we talk to has some element of a transformation initiative. You know, whether it's movement to the cloud, whether it's implementing AI, whether it's being able to bring the data together to report, whether I go to a, from a multi-data warehouse environment to a data lake, or I'm going to certain, data fabrics or data meshes that are out there, that I want to be able to bring that together. I want to be able to leverage my data. I mean, data right now is becoming a strategic asset that companies are looking for.
Strategic asset, yeah, that's what we're seeing. Yeah.
AI and transformation and automation is here to stay. Companies are looking to say, how do I become much more agile? How do I transform the business to adapt to what changes in the market? And how do I move forward? How do I transform to become more efficient and reduce my cost?
Well, when it comes to AI, I mean, we've only just started. I mean, we barely started, really. So I think it's a pretty good time before your own organization, if you're watching this, it gets overwhelmed or, starts to get overwhelmed. It's a really good time to think about the quality of your data, its quality, its security. But you need to be able to do both at the same time, right, Tom? You do all the things at the same time. How do you help? How does Datavail help, in your experience, your customers balance all of these things?
Well, it's a matter of really looking at where they are today and where they want to be. It's developing that roadmap to the future, understanding where they are today. What do they have in place? Where do they want to go to? What are the requirements that they're trying to drive to? But it really is talking with the business. It's not an IT function. You've got to have IT in partnership with the business to be able to move that forward. IT is not the only one out there. We've got companies that are looking at, how do I do what if analysis, looking at the data, so that if I reduce, my raw material costs, I can increase profitability. Or if I buy in volume, which reduces the cost, what do I do with that to increase profitability? Or how do I become more efficient in the operation? But it really comes down to, what is that roadmap? What is that overall capability they're trying to achieve, and helping them to get there?
Is that more or less the advice you would give those watching this? Think about your roadmap. Go ahead.
Think about your roadmap. Think about what you're trying to do, where you're going, and how you're going to leverage this. But you've also got
as a business, as
a business, it has to fit with the business strategy. But then you've got to go back and you've got to look at your data and the sources of the data and the accuracy of that data. How are you ingesting that data? How are you extracting that data out of those systems to ingest it into other systems or into analytical environments or into AI to be used as an asset? And then plan it out, make sure that you bring governance around it, because governance right now is becoming much more to the forefront, and it's something that everybody's looking for. And you've got to put governance around what you're doing.
Well, great. I think that's a nice summary to the discussion today. It's an important discussion. It's a helpful discussion for really, I think, the whole market. I'm really glad that TechStrong Research conducted this poll. Thanks to Datavail for sponsoring it and sponsoring the report. Those are part of the webinar materials that you have access to if you're watching this. So download that, take a look at it. Go to datavail.com, see what they've got to offer in terms of strategies and capabilities. And with that, I will close this webinar. Everyone have a good morning, afternoon, or evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Guy.
Guy, do you want me to close it out for you? I can.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure. And those who are still on, don't forget to take our survey. It's just one moment of your time and let us know how we're doing. But thank you all for joining us today. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, TechStrong. Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Datavail.
Guys, thank you very much.